What's up guys, Carmine here, and finally we have another House of the Dragon trailer, possibly the last big one we'll get before the start of the new season. And of course, before we get started, I am aware that Amazon chose to release their Rings of Power teaser a few hours before this trailer, and I gotta say, props to them for announcing the release of their show after House of the Dragon ends. For those of you who don't know or don't remember, 2 years ago, both Amazon and HBO released both shows around the same time in some friendly competition, and it was clear that House of the Dragon was going to come out on top, and it did. This time, Amazon has learned their lesson, kinda, and will wait until House of the Dragon Season 2 ends on August 4th. Though something tells me that House of the Dragon will win this year once again, but who knows? Stranger things have happened. As always, if you're new here, be sure to like and subscribe for more coverage on everything Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon related, and be sure to let me know your thoughts down below and what you thought of the trailer. But for now, let's get into it. So the trailer starts off with Daemon back in King's Landing in the throne room. At first I thought this was a scene from Season 1 and they were putting in some stock footage, but no, I can't find a scene from Season 1 where he has on this outfit in there. So it's either a dream sequence, a vision, or he legitimately snuck back into King's Landing for some nefarious reason. Though I will say it's kind of weird that he doesn't have his signature cloak if he's sneaking about. As we all know in House of the Dragon, the mystical cloak of bullshit allows almost any character to get away with almost anything because of its insane stats. Next up, we get some quick shots of Jace with Cregan Stark over at the wall, Alicent in the field somewhere, and what appears to be dragon eggs, and possibly Daenerys' dragon eggs. That's definitely the implication they were going for here, and we'll have to see how far showrunner Ryan Condal wants to include that storyline in this, because in the Fire and Blood history book, we know that a character sells some eggs to the Sea Lord of Braavos for a ship to sail around the world, and the idea is that eventually these eggs would petrify and be given to Daenerys as a wedding gift almost 200 years later in Game of Thrones. Since Condal is connecting Targaryen history to the White Walkers, it's possible he'll try to connect and insert the mystery of where Dany's eggs came from in this season. Next, we get several shots we've all seen before, and then we land on this one here of Rhaenyra picking up a sword. For those of you who don't know, in the books, Rhaenyra doesn't really do much during the opening stages of the war, so it's possible that they'll change that to give her a more active role in the fighting or even directing armies on the front lines. This is a change we've seen previously with Baela in the other trailers, where characters who aren't really active in the books are having their storylines altered to give them more to do. Right after this, we see Daemon trying to get Rhaenys to go with him to King's Landing, possibly to bring the war to a swift end by attacking quickly. Both Daemon and Rhaenys are older and are more experienced than Aegon and Aemond, so it's reasonable that Daemon wants to take advantage of this inexperience and launch a full-scale assault on the capital. If you'll recall, this is something Daenerys wanted to do in Game of Thrones, but was cautioned out of it by her advisors. So it's possible that the first scene in the trailer isn't a dream, but Daemon doing his own thing, which we'll get back to in a minute. Next up, we see that the Green Council has come together and Aegon wants to know how they should proceed with the coming war, and everyone has differing opinions, but he wants revenge. As far as we know, nothing crazy has happened yet against him and his side for him to want that, but we do know that if Daemon is sneaking into the Red Keep, some terrible stuff has had to happen to the Green side, possibly some revenge for what the Greens did to Luke in the season finale. Next, we get some beautiful shots of the Lannisters marching to war. Even though I like the original Lannister armor from Game of Thrones, I gotta say, I love their precursor armor too. It's absolutely stunning. Apparently they hired the same costume designer from Thrones, and honestly I think they nailed it. Props to them for that. But this scene here is part of the War of the Ravens, which kicked off in the last episode of Season 1. Basically, the Targaryens are calling all of the great houses to see who will join them. Of course, ravens aren't enough, so we'll see that Baela and Jace are also going out there as well. A good chunk of the trailer is armies coming together and marching, and it really puts the reality of war in perspective for us, and I really like that. We didn't get much of that in Thrones, with all the armies coming together, so I'm all here for it. And of course, for all our book nerds in the comments, we have House Stokeworth, Darkland, and Rosby, all houses from the Crownlands, so we can expect a Rook's Rest battle this season. But the most telling part of the trailer is the drama forming between Rhaenyra and Daemon and whether or not he respects her as queen. And I'm kind of glad they're addressing this because, if you'll recall, Daemon was originally Viserys' heir in episode 1, and then the whole Prince for a Day joke came out and, well, yeah, Daemon is always someone who has his own ambitions for the throne, and while I'm not saying he has plans on betraying her, he is called the Rogue Prince for a reason. I think the big question this season between these two will be, is Daemon fighting his enemies or their enemies? We'll just have to see. Next up, we finally get a good look at Aegon's dragon Sunfire and him flying around King's Landing in his custom armor while Alicent and Aemond's relationship breaks down. Alicent, even in the Green Council episode last season, has never wanted the Hightower takeover to be through bloodshed, which is why she wanted to get to Aegon first, but now it's just unavoidable. What I like about this is it's just like Viserys told Rhaenyra in episode 1 about the idea of them controlling the dragons being a lie, and you can kind of extend that to the Targaryens as well. In this season, we'll see a lot of this. Alicent can't stop her sons from becoming awful murderers, and Rhaenyra can't control Daemon and his bullshit. It really does infect all of these people one way or another. Now, we finally get to what the other trailers have been lacking, new characters. First and foremost, we get a great look at the resident Stark for the show, Cregan Stark, played by Tom Taylor. I love how he has the Stark ancestral sword with him, and the direwolf pin. Nice touch. We also get a great look at Alyn of Hull, played by Abubakar Salim. If he looks familiar, he previously played Father on Raised by Wolves, and honestly, he was my favorite character on that show, so I'm glad to see him here. I'm not used to him being bald, but I'm excited that he's joined the cast on the Velaryon side. And on the green side, we see Alys Rivers, who, according to Entertainment Weekly, will be behind some crazy stuff happening in Harrenhal and will affect Daemon in many ways. The quote here from writer Sarah Hess is, "Alys served as a wet nurse to many of the babes born at Harrenhal over the years, but like Melisandre from Game of Thrones, she courts the supernatural and no one knows her true age." However, because Melisandre and the supernatural are mentioned, they had to clarify that nobody's giving birth to a smoke baby, let's put it that way. All this is meant to do is bear down on Daemon in a Macbethian sense when he arrives at Harrenhal. He can't sleep, there's weird shit going on, he's not sure if it's real or if it's in his own head. We just wanted to have unexplained things and then use that as a conduit to lay him open a little more than he would be in normal life. So basically, Alys is the Diet Coke version of Melisandre, just without any magic, which is perfectly fine. Magic has always been a part of the series, and I get that some people don't like it, and that's fine too, but even a sprinkle of it here will be okay. Once again, honestly, I'm just glad we're getting a look at the new characters, especially now that the show is opening up to a lot of Westeros with the war looming. So this is good. I like this. And now, before we close out the trailer, we see that Aemond is in bed with someone, and he'll likely be getting a love interest. We also see Rhaena, who appears to be in another location than she would be normally in the books. I'll expand on this in another video, but it does have to do with Ryan Condal expanding character storylines. And of course, we also see a return of Mysaria, who has been noticeably absent in a lot of the new trailers. First and foremost, her accent is considerably better, and she mentions the other side of the Game of Thrones, the game part where you can play it in more than one way, which leads us to some quick shots of subterfuge in the season. Backstabbings, bribes, assassinations, and inciting revolts. The usual CK2 stuff. We also see some shots of dragons fighting because, of course we do, and finally we see Rhaenys on her dragon melees. If you pause at the correct moment, you can see that wherever the Green Army was marching towards in the first half of the trailer, she is there as well. We close out the trailer with Rhaenyra standing in front of the dragon Vermithor. We know this because he has the spikes around his jaw, which is taken directly from the Fire and Blood history book. And as we fade to black, the words, "War is coming and neither us may win," is heard. Overall, I really enjoyed this trailer. It gave us everything we've been wanting and then some. We got the armies marching, appearances from new and well-known book characters, conflicts from each side among their own forces, dragons fighting, some nice teases here and there, and good old-fashioned Game of Thrones intrigue. It's all here and it delivered. 10 out of 10. And not to rile up the fandom rivalry, but I think ours beat out the Rings of Power one, but who's keeping track? But let me know what you guys thought of it. I really liked it. Maybe you didn't. Let me know if you agree or disagree. And did I miss anything you might have caught? As always, leave your thoughts down below. Be sure to like and subscribe. It helps out a lot. And I'll see you all next time. Have a good one.